Hi, I'm Ellen from the Chili Dog. I'm working on the straps of the knit knot bag, and today I'm going to show you how to do two different kinds of decreases, the slip slip knit or SSK and also the slip slip purl or SSP. I'll start with a quick demonstration so you can see close up how both the decreases are worked. But if you have a minute, stay tuned to the end because I'll also explain the mechanics of these decreases and why we need to slip our stitches knitwise instead of purlwise, and also why we have to work them through the back loops or legs. It's kind of interesting stuff. Let's get started. The slip slip knit is abbreviated SSK, and it's a decrease that slants to the left. To work it, you slip two stitches individually knitwise and then knit them together through the back loops or legs of the stitches. So you slip the first stitch knitwise, slip the second stitch knitwise, return the stitches to the left needle, but there's no need to remove the right needle from the stitches because it's already in position to knit those two stitches together through the back loops or legs. So you can just go ahead and knit, and you've completed your SSK. The slip slip purl is abbreviated SSP, and it's a decrease that slants to the right on the purl side, which means it slants to the left on the knit side, exactly like the SSK. To work it, you slip two stitches individually knitwise and then purl them together through the back loops or legs. So you slip one stitch knitwise, slip a second stitch knitwise, return them to the left needle, and this time the right needle needs to be removed from the stitches before you can work them together. So you pull out the right needle and then reinsert it in the opposite order through the stitches so you can purl. And then purl those stitches together and the SSP. Now that you know how to perform an SSK and an SSP, let's take a little bit of a look at why these decreases work the way they do. When we knit, our stitches are mounted on our knitting needles perpendicular to our fabric. So even though eventually they're going to lay flat in the fabric, when they're on our knitting needles, they're turned 90 degrees. And they're customarily mounted with the right hand leg of the stitch at the front of the needle and the left hand leg of the stitch at the back of the needle. No matter how a stitch is mounted on your needles, and if you don't believe me, you can experiment with this more at home, whenever you work a knit or a purl around the front leg of a stitch, the stitch is going to rotate off your needles counterclockwise as if you were looking straight down at the top of the stitch. So when you work around the front leg of a stitch, it rotates off your needle counterclockwise. Whenever you work around the back leg of a stitch, it's going to rotate off your needles clockwise. Just flip it so you can see what happened there. So when we do a decrease like a knit two together or a purl two together, it's pretty straightforward what is going to happen. For a knit two together, we're just treating two stitches as if they were one, working them together, but we're working around the front leg of the stitch. So when we knit those two stitches together, they're going to come off our needle and rotate counterclockwise. And what we end up getting is a decrease that slants to the right on the knit side, and it would slant to the left if I was looking at it on the purl side. On the flip side of things, if you're working a purl two together, you're going to get the same results. So you're still working around the front leg of both the stitches, but you're going to purl them together. But because you're working around the front leg, the stitches are going to rotate counterclockwise off the needle, and you'll still get a decrease that slants to the left on the purl side, but to the right on the knit side. Getting a decrease to slant in the opposite direction isn't quite as straightforward, so let's take a minute and reverse engineer the SSK. Ultimately, for an SSK, what we want to happen is we want the decrease to slant to the left. And we need our stitches to be mounted on the needle in the conventional order. So when I take these two stitches to get them back up onto the left needle, notice two things. First of all, I have to rotate them counterclockwise to get them back up on the needle, which means when they come off the needle in our work together, they need to come off the needle clockwise. That means I'm going to need to work those two stitches together through the back loop. Also notice that now the stitches are mounted in reverse. The right hand leg of both of the stitches is at the back of the needle, and the left hand leg of both of these stitches is at the front of the needles. So before I can work them together, I would need to remount the stitches by slipping them knitwise. So let's get everything back in its order that we would expect to see when we're knitting, and then work through an SSK. So first we need to remount the two stitches by slipping them knitwise. That rotates the stitches. So slip one knitwise, slip the second stitch knitwise, return them to the left needle, and then working the stitches through the back loops always rotates the stitches clockwise so we can get the decrease we're looking for. So now we can reverse engineer the slip slip purl the same way. I'll turn things over here. For a slip slip purl, we want the decrease to slant to the right. So we need our stitches to be mounted on our left needle in the conventional order. When I do that, I have to turn them counterclockwise to get them on the needle, which means you need to come off the needle clockwise. To do that, I'll have to work them together through the back loops or the back legs of the stitches. And before I can work them together, these stitches are reverse mounted with the right hand leg of both stitches at the back and the left hand leg of both stitches at the front. So you need to change the mount and then work them together through the back loops. So again, we'll put them in their proper positions. And then to do an SSP, what you would need to do is slip one knitwise to change the mount, slip the second stitch knitwise to change the mount, return it to both stitches to your left needle, and then by working the stitches together through the back loops, they rotate off clockwise, and on the purl side, the decrease slants to the right. I hope you enjoyed learning how to perform the SSK and SSP and why decreases work the way they do. If you did, make sure to give this video a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and subscribe to my channel, The Chili Dog, for more stitching tips and tutorials. Until we stitch again, happy knitting!